Let's see here.
Recording in progress.
Well, good morning and good early morning. We've got a special guest joining us this Friday from the West Coast, Rachel McBrearty, who's the Chief Customer Officer of LeanData. Super excited to have Rachel join us. We're going to dig into her background. It's very, very unique, but we're going to first start off with the poll. And each week we do a poll, and this week's poll happens to be related to Rachel's unique background. As a chief customer officer, she owns the marketing function of customer marketing, which I found very unique, and kind of the entire customer success and customer experience background as well. But this week's poll was really around who should be owning the RevOps function. And LeanData targets RevOps, and we'll talk about who LeanData is in a moment. But I was a little bit surprised by this poll. Granted, it's not statistically significant. There's only 18 people that have voted so far. But what surprised me was that there weren't more salespeople saying that sales operations or sales should own the RevOps function, of which marketing ops feeds into. I was surprised there weren't more voters in that direction. Having said that, if I were a marketer, my strong preference would be to own the entire funnel, because then I know my top of the funnel could actually connect to pipeline or to revenue. But Megan, what was your perspective when you saw this poll?
I was surprised that nobody picked sales too. I picked other, and I'll say because I think the answer is it could be either, it should be both, and it should include customer, right? If you're thinking about revenue operations, it needs all of the above. So I'm guessing that why you're not seeing you're seeing a high percentage of others is because of that, right? You really do want to make sure that you've got appropriate expertise and representation for all the revenue functions. And that means that it's a collaboration as opposed to, one of these functions wants to take the lead. And I think actually that's where, and Rachel, super interested to hear your thoughts on this one, but I feel like that's where RevOps can sort of go sideways, is if you do have, either sales or marketing, and it is usually sales sort of overly dominant in that, because you focus on only one part of what revenue ops can really do. And it's not just pre-sale, it's post-sale as well. So anyhow, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think think about the start of RevOps, it kind of had its roots in finance. That's why we see some of the RevOps products are seen more as forecasting tools. But I think where, it's really evolved to be much more strategic and encompassing that whole stack, to your point, Megan. I think that's where other comes in, because really when it's set up well, those teams are organized, right? The sales ops, marketing ops, CS ops, they're centralized and they're focused on the customer, right? Not the individual department. And I think that's the real key thing when they are centralized and organized to, drive that end-to-end funnel. You see dramatic improvements in the value and velocity of deals, improvements in conversion. So you need to be seeing that bigger picture. Now, there's always a concern, well, if it gets centralized and I lose my resources and I still need my marketing ops, helping me with the marketing technologies, et cetera. But I think that, that centralized team, that marketing ops person will still spend their time making sure that the marketing capabilities are set up, but they're also looking at the bigger picture with the rest of the team. So, I think that's probably where the other comes from. Another thing to add, I thought it was interesting too with the marketing, there are organizations where if you think about RevOps in being strategic, it starts with really understanding who your customer is and how you're going to design that journey for them, and then building the system below. And a lot of times marketing is really responsible for understanding the market, defining the persona and the journey. And so if they are, it might make sense to have the team that builds that out across the company, living in the marketing organization. But I think it depends on the role of that CMO and if they really are owning the strategy, that customer strategy, and then they would want the teams to make sure that that strategy gets built out, not just the land, but the expand, but the whole cycle. So I could see where that could make sense. Just depends on the role of the CMO and what they're playing in the company.
That's a great point, Rachel. And maybe just backing up for a second in terms of your company and background, I think of LeanData as a Swiss Army knife in many regards because it's got so many capabilities depending on what the use case is. But maybe in your words, maybe you could share a little bit about what LeanData is or does and kind of your role as part of it, which I think is super unique versus a lot of others that I've seen outside of the LeanData organization.
Sure, no, thank you for that. Yeah, LeanData is, we have a family of solutions that help orchestrate and automate the go-to-market processes. So we really work with revenue teams to, help improve conversion, make sure you're getting sort of your speed and velocity of deals. We live in the center of sort of Salesforce CRM. So we help with lead routing, account routing, opportunity management. We really started very much in the space of lead to account matching and routing, and really now have expanded to be able to enable that orchestration across the entire life cycle with integrations into intent, enrichment, sales engagement. So really we do, like you said, we are a Swiss Army knife. We have a whole toolkit, and depending on the go-to-market process that you need to build out, whether you're doing a product-led growth motion, to your large manufacturing company that's looking to do demand unit waterfall, we can help connect and orchestrate, we call it the buying signals that come in to the plays of the sellers or the systems that need to respond. So really we sit and help to connect across and orchestrate, we like to say, across the different capabilities, because there's so much today, it gets a little bit overwhelming. So if we can automate and build the business logic to help teams to automate, and then give the visibility into how things are going, and then you can watch those lead flows or how you're doing in terms of conversion points. And then my role, I am the Chief Customer Officer, and at LeanData, that is defined as like everything post-sale. I do have, it's probably really better defined as everything customer journey. I do have the solution consultants who also do some pre-sale, but professional services, customer success, support, training, and customer marketing. So the goal is to make sure that we understand what our clients' needs are, and we help them to accomplish it with our capabilities. And the team really rallies and aligns around those different stages of the customer life cycle.
Yeah, it's such a super critical role there that you oversee, especially in this environment, this economic climate where there's a little bit more uncertainty. So the retention, upsell, like the pendulum has swung, I would imagine, in your direction. Maybe trend-wise, are you seeing anything in terms of unique trends, either the maturity of company or type of company in the adoption of strategies that relate to leads or opportunity management, out of curiosity?
Yeah, I think what's been sort of settling out, we saw, if we look at the past couple of years, there's been such a proliferation of technologies and capabilities that we've been adopting. We're seeing this year really kind of a settling in and a real discipline around getting very focused on the go-to-market that you're building out. And it's really kind of falling out as we're seeing into, let's say for simplicity's sake, 3 key categories. And those are aligning to where a company is at. So let me give you an example. If you're a relatively new, fast-growing startup, you're really just, you're trying to get into the market and find your buyer, right? You're focused on that persona. You're focused on the individual who's going to be interested in the problem you're solving. And so you're very lead-oriented. You're very individual-oriented. But as you get larger, you begin to see, hey, these are my best fit customers. These are the accounts that really buy. These are the accounts with the best customer lifetime value. So now you can start to build out a more strategic account-based approach to saying, I'm going to go win this part of the market because I know that I've got some, great customers that look like this. I'm going to go find other ones, right? And so we see companies then making a shift, really adopting, more of the intent data and doing more strategic account-based motions. And it still tends to be there. You probably have one buying center, one sales team to one buying center. You're still focused on individuals, but you might be thinking a little more buying group when you're at that stage. And then let's fast forward to you're a large manufacturing company. I worked for Cisco, so I'll use Cisco as an example, where you have multiple business units, multiple buying centers in one account. Those accounts are really embracing, say, the demand unit waterfall buying groups, managing buying groups. So they can see, you come in and you're interested in a product or a business unit, they can pull together those group of buyers into the opportunity and send it to the channel partner or the sales team that services them. Yet their AE can see all the opportunities across the product portfolio. So we're sort of seeing that lead management, strategic account base, and demand unit waterfall kind of aligning to a company's sort of, we could call it maturity, or business model, John, which is, really, those patterns are really starting to emerge. And I think there's just an interesting inflection point where the discipline, even in RevOps, is they're really upping their game to, get really planning out for what they want to be doing in their go-to-markets, aligning the teams, and then methodically moving toward it.
So Rachel, I'm wondering, RevOps, I feel like is an idea that a lot of people want to embrace, but I think they're not always sure how to get started, and how to think about shifting away from sort of siloed operations to something a little more strategic. What would you advise a company that's just sort of embarking on that journey?
Yeah, and I think it doesn't need to be physically together into one team. So that's something that I think everybody gets fixated on. I think what it really does center on is thinking strategically about what you want to accomplish. And I know strategic is probably the wrong word, but if you can align the teams on which accounts you're going after, who are you, looking to win, understanding those buying groups, building out the right journeys for each of those target persona, whether it's the key buyer or the influencers, that really alignment around the buyer journey is what aligns the teams, whether or not they're physically together, and having a cohort that comes together to do that. And then I think the more mature companies are also seeing that the buyer and seller journey are inextricably linked. And so they're really thinking like product managers and saying, okay, if we know that who our plan is of, where do we want to focus? How are we going to win those accounts? And the operationalizing it with a mindset of a product manager or product management to build out those journeys. But I think, Megan, you need a team that comes together, whether their reporting lines are in through the same person or not. But it does start with that central, plan to go win those customers and then build out the journey.
Hey, sorry I joined late, but Rachel, I'm John from TechTarget. We are a LeanData client. We also have some of your major competitors, and maybe we will consolidate. But you just said the key word here that I think is really interesting. So there is this dream of RevOps, and there are these big companies that can set that vision and drive it top down. But the word that really caught my ear was operationalizing the go-to-market. And I think like what we're seeing in our company is that we're operationalizing go-to-market ideas, yes, coming from product owners, but we're operationalizing sort of bottoms up. We're saying, this is what we know we need to do with the target company. How do we now get sales better informed about that target company? And can we drive through the middleware, through LeanData? Can we drive the changes in the sales motion that we're looking for? So we are looking to change the sales motion based on our understanding of buying centers away from people or beyond people to groups of people. And that means we have to attach data in a way to single salespeople and groups of salespeople who may be covering that account so that they better coordinate in their motion. And to me, that's part of RevOps. but it's really operationalizing from where we are towards maybe a RevOps vision that we haven't put into place. So it's very tactical that your software is helping us to enable, even in the absence of the big vision.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what you raise is something that is a lot of folks are thinking about, which is also the seller journey, and how do you think about that sales experience and building toward the sales experience and service of the customer. So as you described, you've got to be able to, know what that salesperson needs to see on the account. So one example, I just was talking to a client, they're making a big shift to really managing the buying groups and account-based approach. And they said the big shift that's going to happen for the sales team is, instead of seeing the individual leads, SQLs, MQLs, they're going to see the account view, and they're going to see the account engagement activity. And then below that's going to be the individuals. And that's just a significant shift. And they said it's going to take us a good year to get there, in part because we have to make and design that sales experience, it's very, very different in the way they're going to start to consume and manage the data.
Yeah.
And so it's it's really thinking through and designing. I think that's where I'm hearing a lot about the RevOps team taking this product management design thinking approach to thinking through, that's where you want to move to, John, how do we design it so that you get adoption and the sales organization knows how to execute? Because, at the end of the day, it's great, although, marketing, content, and digital experiences, but I think those sellers are really the key too, especially in B2B, in engaging with the client. And so we want to set them up to be well equipped and do it at the right time. It's so critical these days.
Yeah, I mean, some specifics are in cross-sell with overlay teams. So imagine you're getting these different signals, you're getting them into the account, but there's different sellers who need to be involved at different times. It's not just a simple routing problem anymore.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, absolutely. And that's where I think the rise of the focus on the sellers and how do you distribute and organize the teams. And then, sales chronically rearranges everything too. Oh, this person is this account, right? So the ability to kind of go in and agilely change those connections too is a lot of what we're with our clients on.
Yeah, I'm struck by how much of it still comes down to different data needs. Whether it's customer marketing, expansion, cross-sell, net new, it always seems to come back to, well, the issue lies in, I don't have the right data that I need, or I can't get access to it, or it's not real time. I have to wait. And, we're in a situation where we've organized our CRM where we're only working contacts, and that's a big change. I've never seen a company that's only working contacts, which I think is great for the sellers because then they're able to see everyone in an account. But if you think back to the way we're receiving leads from demand gen standpoint, you still have that problem where you've got leads, and which brings me back to, I'm going to need something like a LeanData because I need to now, I can't work in a lead environment. So like the pendulum struck the other way, and now it's creating problems on the lead side. So it seems to always come back to data issues for me.
Yeah, and I think that is really the problem that we're setting out to solve, is to be able to pull all of that together, right? Match that lead to the account, convert it to a contact. If you see a buying group, auto create those opportunities. And then also bringing in the enrichment data, intent data, all at the right time, because then you can really be actionable and prioritize what that sales team needs to go after, because that's super, super critical, right? If that buying group is shopping right now, right, you want to be in there talking to them. If they're not quite ready, don't bug them so much, right? This again, it comes back to the experience that you're trying to design, so you get that win-win. But yeah, that data orchestration, I agree, Linda, is critical, and we've got all these proliferation of all these different capabilities, but really bringing it together.
It makes sense to me that you guys have been driving the RevOps vision a lot as a company. But the point I was raising was that that's a big vision, long time, long-term thing. So obviously you have to do that. You have to shape the market so the market understands what the heck you're talking about, where it's going. But let's talk about, I'm interested in how you sell LeanData, how you find the person who will be interested, and how you recommend that your clients nurture that kind of brain trust with, even if they're not going to create RevOps, how do you build the people who understand the importance of this glue between elements of the go-to-market? How are we as an industry building these people who kind of have an end-to-end understanding of connections between go-to-market vision for a product and the operationalization of it? Because frankly, I don't see a lot of budget available in like marketing ops organizations to fix this big problem. So how are you, I don't know, how are you finding those people, or how are you recommending in your client relationships they build the competency necessary to kind of optimize?
Yeah, well, I think first it starts with, it depends on the size of the organization, John. So in the smaller organizations, say that are just starting out, we do tend to talk to the marketing or sales operations teams that maybe own the SDR team, right? Or the BDR team. They are at a point where they've probably been manually or awkwardly trying to get leads and getting that team organized. And so we tend to be able to solve that lead to account matching and routing problem, and then also set up those SDRs with SLAs and notifications and do the enrichment. So that's sort of the end-to-end sort of lead management problem that we solve. And that could be in sales or marketing operations. We don't need to be a RevOps team in order to help you to, really orchestrate these particular use cases. I think in the larger organizations, if we look at, we worked with Siemens over the past 3 years. Siemens has gone through a huge transformation to embrace the B2B revenue waterfall, or so the next generation demand unit waterfall. There it was, we did start with them, same thing with the lead management and just the basic, like, how do you get leads organized and how do you get them attached to accounts and how do you see what's going on? And then we work toward, ultimately Siemens has rolled out the ability to work in opportunities. But it's really us finding the companies that are going on this transformational journey in sales and marketing. I want to say it's sort of their digital journey, and being a part of that. So our route to market might be, hey, we work with a Forrester who's already working with clients because they want to make this move, or an Accenture, or some of our big partners. So there's different routes that we have to market, but it can just come from a simple pain point of, like, I have a team that's just manually triaging leads, and that's how I justify my budget. I don't need to have 2 or 3 people sitting there just going through data trying to get it to my sales team. I mean, it's a very simple problem to solve, but once it's there, it's like those smaller companies, we can set it, forget it, it runs, and we don't need human people, human capital. We can have them working on higher level things.
We have more questions than time today. As we predicted, we thought this would be a juicy conversation. You and John, Rachel, as you were talking, just put a finer point on something that I think was a really interesting point about how presenting the information to the sales team in this account-based motion and presenting the relevant insights, marketers, speaking from my own experience as a marketer, have a huge blind spot on that. The blind spot being marketers are stamping our feet up and down saying, hey, we're doing all this ABM, we're doing all this ABM. And the sales team can't digest because the user experience in Salesforce is not presenting that information in a proper way. And I think that's where you really, A, need to have somebody thinking about that. B, need a tool like a LeanData to then connect those insights and present them in a way that they can action on it. Otherwise, everybody's really frustrating. I think there's another layer too of you're changing the sales behavior from, I call it the beat street cop to private detective, where you're trying to change a mindset. That's another conversation for another account-based Friday, but your tool really enables that process. And we find too, not to plug LeanData, but a lot of the reporting that we're seeing in the mature organizations LeanData is almost a critical component now. Almost, I don't want to say quite the egg in the cake, but sugar. Like, I've never had cake without sugar in it. You're becoming, as you hit a certain scale point, like you said, it seems like, I don't know what the threshold is, but it almost is that manual, hey, we've got people doing this, versus, wow, we could automate this and save the time and the money. And oh my God, there's so many other things we can do. We can create opportunities from LeanData, which I don't know any other software that does do that. So you got a lot of unique capabilities there that I think enables the reporting as well.
Yeah, and I think we've sort of gone through an evolution too. As we talk about it, we have certainly been behind the RevOps operations professionals are our core audience. We have an industry community called OpsStars, and our mission is to help connect revenue operations professionals so they can learn and grow. But I think as we've moved forward, we've seen this evolution into more of these thinking about those go-to-market motions, like you said, of lead management, account, strategic account-based, demand unit waterfall. And really, as we've been evolving with our customers, it's really being able to orchestrate within those appropriate structures and strategies that you want to use as a company. So, as we're evolving, we're really saying we're about revenue orchestration in support of RevOps, but it isn't so much that you have to have a RevOps organization in a structured way, if that makes sense. 'Cause I think it's what do you need to set up in order to be, successfully bring your revenue teams around the buyer and seller journeys, at the highest level. And you're right, John. I think too, as we look at it, as how do we bring about this change in a way that's least disruptive. So it's great to be able to bring all this in Salesforce where the sales team already lives. So you're going to present the data differently, but they still don't need to completely relearn things, because that's the other challenge we have. There's so much technology, like how much training and onboarding just to learn all the tools. So the more we can make it invisible to the sales team, or that they go one place and they don't have a ton that they need to learn, is, we want them to focus on the customer. We don't want them learning technology and having to go through, 5 different user interfaces. But yeah, rich topic. Like you said, we could talk about all of this for many hours.
Linda, I saw you go off mute. Did you have a question for Rachel?
No, I'm just listening, just agreeing. I think really where the rubber meets the road is really in Salesforce, and you can keep adding and adding and adding, and is that really, it's almost subtracting from the experience of the seller, because they're just so overwhelmed. And I find that enablement piece, even for SDRs in particular, because their needs are different, tends to often be overlooked, and it's so important to their productivity.
I know. Have you seen their tech stacks lately for the SDR?
Mm-hmm.
Like silent creep, but look, that tech stack, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's a lot of moving parts to manage, and a lot of things to keep in your head, especially as people shift into account-based go-to-markets where you are having to be more specific and detailed. I do not envy folks in that role, that challenge. I mean, people who are enabling them. Anyhow, I know we're kind of just a little bit over time. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today. And this has been a really great conversation. And I know you've given me some good food for thought for some work that I've got to do. So I thank you for that. And John and Linda, thank you for joining us. John, any parting words for Rachel?
No, other than there's I guess there was a lead gen study you guys did recently. Maybe I can send that out afterward. It was I think LeanData did a recent study on that. Maybe we can
state
email
of
that
lead
out.
management.
Yeah,
I will send that.
Yeah, that would be terrific. And then next week we've got Tessa Barron, who's the head of marketing for On24. Tessa's been there for quite a number of years. She's the unique California transplant who lives in New York City. At least I think that's unique. But California native living in New York City. But anyway, I'm really excited to have Tessa, and I want to thank Rachel for this great conversation, which I totally expected it would be great. And we would love to maybe even have you come back, because there's more questions than time. But thank you for investing the time early morning on the West Coast.
Thanks for having me on. This has been fun.
Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks.
Recording stopped.